All right, welcome back, Chickies and Pete's, Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. We're powered today by Corona Light. Right now, we're going to be joined by Marcus Hayes of the Philadelphia Daily News. He wrote an article a few days ago, "If accountability matters for the Eagles, Roseman must go." And it was a very interesting read, and Marcus Hayes from the Philadelphia Daily News joins us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Marcus, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming on. So I read your article. I agreed with some points. I disagreed with some points. But the thing I want to know is, what are the chances that Howie Roseman does actually get fired at the end of the season?
Well, maybe 20-25%, depending on how sort of things finish up. If a guy like Samualo, Isaac Samualo plays well the last three games, Vaitai comes back and gets some playing time, Nelson Aguilar turns himself around, I think those would help Howie. Even if they don't, Howie's probably pretty safe. The point of my column was Chip Kelly was judged on 11 months of work. Howie's had 4 years and 11 months, and he's been in the system for 17 years. And I don't know how much he's ever helped, and they've been pretty poor during his sort of ascension time. So why should he stay around if you have a good young team with a good young quarterback? You no longer have a good young promising front office guy. You've got a guy who's failed for 4.5 years.
It's actually a very good point, because if you take a look at Howie Roseman, you're right. There's not a lot of successful things that he's done for this franchise. And I go back to questioning why they put him back in power after they got rid of Chip Kelly. Why do you think Jeffrey Lurie is so loyal to Howie Roseman?
Well, Jeffrey sees Howie as his product, his protege. He hired Howie when Howie probably should have been hired by anybody in the NFL, and promoted him very, very quickly, really without merit. And Howie was protected at first by Tom Modrak, and then by Andy Reid, and finally, and through it all by Joe Banner, who really groomed him. Joe Banner is the reason Howie Roseman is of value in the NFL. And he's good at the Joe Banner stuff. He's good at managing the salary cap and understanding how franchises get put together. Howie's a lawyer. He's a businessman. Joe Banner's the guy who really did all four stadium deals in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Howie Roseman has that capacity, too. He's a valuable guy, just like Sam Hinkie was a valuable guy, just not the guy you want making the decisions as a talent evaluator and a talent procurer.
We just had someone on from Baltimore, a talk show host down there, and Rob Long, and he was talking about how he's confident in Joe Douglas, and Howie and Joe together are going to have to hit on these next two drafts, because I do believe Howie will be here next year. The confidence level when you look at Howie's drafts, really, they've been 50-50. These next two drafts, especially the first and second round, I was just saying a few moments ago, Marcus, he has to be 75%. He has to hit on 3 out of those 4 draft picks. It seems like you don't have confidence in Howie to be able to do that. Is that fair to say?
Well, I don't know where you're getting 50-50 from. I mean, you can count. I think they've had 3 Pro Bowl players that have gone to the Pro Bowl during Howie's reign, and I'm not sure he drafted any of them. So, it's just it's deceptive, sort of what he's done, and I have very little confidence that he, as a guy with the final say, can turn his own track record around, number one. Number two, Joe Douglas has a pedigree. I wouldn't mind them promoting Joe Douglas and giving him an unfettered run at this for 2 or 3 years, and replacing Howie in the front office as the cap manager and the business manager. I think he's competent and gifted at that, but I don't know if that could work in this iteration of Jeffrey Lurie's ownership.
Marcus, will the coach be here next year?
Well, it follows for me that if Howie's here, the coach is definitely here. If Howie goes, they might clean house totally, because honestly, Jim Schwartz has sort of soured on the vine, and you might get a total restart, reboot, rebuild. Frankly, I think they're both going to stay. I believe Jeffrey Lurie has a hard time admitting he's wrong in general. We saw that the last few years of Andy Reid, and he put in place an organization, and I think it's a good organization on the offensive side of the ball, to nurture Carson Wentz, who really is the only guy that matters right now wearing any Eagles colors. Maybe Fletcher Cox a little bit, maybe Lane Johnson if he stays clean. But it's all about Carson Wentz. If you think that you put the right guys in place to nurture Carson Wentz, and Jeffrey Lurie has a hard time admitting he's wrong, then he probably isn't going to change that.
Accountability, and I know owners, they flip-flop things all the time when they say something one time and then it changes a few months later. With the accountability, though, does the time clock help Howie that, yes, although he's been with this team for a long time, when he was exiled by Chip and moved to the other side of the office, now he's back in power. How much does that timetable really just help him that, although it's not a new start, it kind of appears that way since he wasn't really heavily involved last year?
Well, honestly, I think the Carson Wentz draft selection after the signing of Sam Bradford was calculated to make Howie less disposable. Because, yes, I mean, everybody's argument is, well, he got this Carson Wentz guy. Well, he signed Sam Bradford thinking he wasn't going to get the Carson Wentz guy. And getting Carson Wentz gives him a longer leash, gives him a longer timetable, to use your term. And I don't think that should be considered, because this was not his initial plan. He didn't think he could get Carson Wentz. If you remove Carson Wentz from the equation, and it's not as though Howie's the only person who could have given up the world and traded for Carson Wentz. If you remove him from the equation, then where's the argument to keep him?
You're right about that. Marcus Hayes with us right now from the Philadelphia Daily News. Marcus, with the whole Brandon Brooks thing, and this is someone that has an anxiety problem right now, and I hope that he's the best. But you do have two sides of the argument when you get into sports talk radio. I'm the one that's wishing him the best and hope that he's able to have a nice long career in Philadelphia. But then you have some people that say, oh, this guy's got to man up, and this guy's got to, when he wakes up on a Sunday, just get out of bed and play. Where do you fall in that argument with Brandon Brooks, who seems like he's a pretty darn good guy?
Well, he is a good guy. He's an interesting guy, and he likes to play football. Anybody that says any football player should man up and just play, who has a condition like this, I mean, that's just rank stupidity. He's unable to play. He has an illness. You can say people don't have mental illnesses, but you're wrong. That's like saying the earth is flat. It's a stupid thing to say, and anyone who says he should man up, you might as well say Vaitai should man up and play through his knee injury. Or, it's just a ridiculous thing to say. There's no side of the argument. There's dumb and there's fact.
And this is an offensive line that has had their struggles, and I agree with what you just said about Brandon Brooks. But when we look at the offensive line, and who knows if a player like Brandon Brooks is going to wake up and be able to play on Sunday, I hope that he does get his best. But when you do look at that rest of the offensive line, Lane Johnson does come back after this week. He'll be eligible to play for the last two games of the season coming off his suspension. Where's your trust level in someone like Lane Johnson?
Well, they've committed so much money to him. I don't know that they have a choice but to trust him. I think Lane's kind of simple, not dumb, just kind of simple and sort of straightforward. And I think he doesn't think things through. And, the thing that we forget, I don't know how old you are, Zach, but the thing that guys who are like me, 48, 50 years old, the thing we forget, these are kids, and yes, they have a responsibility, and yes, they should, make all the right decisions. But they're kids, and him using the NFLPA app on his phone to clear the supplement that betrayed him, that to him is due diligence. A guy like Alan Barbie, who's already popped for PEDs, not just Ritalin, the way that Lane popped the first time when he had a prescription before that became legal. A guy like Alan Barbie is taking nothing that the league doesn't give him because he's a little bit older, he's a little bit wiser, and he has a lot more to lose. He wasn't a first-round pick signed to a huge extension like Lane Johnson. Lane's playing with house money to a large degree in his mind. I have faith in Lane. I don't think Lane Johnson sought to cheat and take PEDs. I think Lane Johnson's just a little simple.
So I'm 22 years old, and here's just the one thing that I'll say about that. If you already got busted, though, once, and I know that there's an app, wouldn't you do everything in your power to ensure that you're not taking some type of supplement that could test positive? And maybe he thought the app was there, but if that was me, and if I'm putting something in my system, I think you got to be a little bit more sure than just relying on an app. And trust me, I'm 22, and I rely on technology more than most people.
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, my contention is this. If the NFLPA app is not all-encompassing and vetted by the NFL, it shouldn't exist. Yes, you should be absolutely ultra careful. I wouldn't take supplements at all. I know how they're made. I know I was covering baseball when the PED steroid boom was on. I did a lot of research. The places that make these supplements don't clean the vats when they go from bad to good. Sometimes they put the bad in there on purpose and hide it and don't tell you, because with weightlifters and power lifters and bodybuilders, results matter way more than the ingredients. And if they pop, they pop. So, I mean, yeah, for me, I wouldn't take supplements anymore. That's what Lane has said he's going to do. He said, I'm going to become a meat and potatoes guy. And hopefully that works for him just as well. Again, I don't think he sought to cheat. I think he made bad decisions. But, he didn't make Josh Huff bad decisions. He didn't make, Ray Caruth bad decisions. He popped for steroids, or he popped for PEDs, not even steroids. So, yeah, I mean, he's a simple guy, and he popped twice. It's unfortunate. And, you move on from it. He's not – I don't believe he's a guy who seeks to cheat. He's not a patriot.
I'm a Patriot fan, by the way.
I'm sorry about that, man. One day you'll win one without cheating. I wish you well.
You know what, though? And that's going to be this year. And here's the thing, though, that I'll say about the
I agree.
Patriots.
I think they're pretty unstable. They're a great team. They really are.
Let me just get to this, though, on Deflategate and everything. And trust me, I'm not one of those Patriot fans that say, oh, nothing ever happened. Did I think the penalty was ridiculous? Yes. But the one thing I will say was I think the league looks very hypocritical when you have those claims that happened in Pittsburgh. And the next thing you know, they have a statement out within 24 seconds, Marcus.
Hey, I'm a person who believes that every case is a case unto itself. And honestly, I think the Deflategate goes away very, very quickly if the owner doesn't reprimand the commissioner at the Super Bowl as soon as he gets off the plane, and if Tom Brady doesn't destroy evidence. I think it's a slap on the wrist, maybe a game, maybe a fourth-round pick, and it's over. But, the way that the Patriots treated the league and the investigation amplified the penalty. I agree. It's not that big a deal. The people that made it the big deal are Robert Kraft and Tom Brady. They handled it with the sort of arrogance. And it's not the commissioner they're fighting with. It's the other 31 teams. The other 31 teams are having the commissioner act as their advocate. He does what they say. And they're in a cartel. They're in a business. These are business partners who feel betrayed by this business again and wantonly. So it is what it is. I wish they had handled it differently, because I really didn't enjoy dealing with it really on the, as front lines as you can get, being in Philadelphia and not Pittsburgh or New York, or not New England or New York. It was tiresome and silly, tiresome and foolish. I hope nothing ever happens like that again to any team, especially the Patriots, because it's awful dealing with Patriots fans.
And then you had in the middle of that, too, you also have to look at, in the middle of that wasn't about the deflation of football in this process. It was about Brady questioning the power of Roger Goodell and all that. But another thing, though, the league did not handle Deflategate well. And I could understand your Robert Kraft point and how he went out and chastised the league and everything like that. But I expect that out of an owner to support your guys. But how about the league? Mike Kensel, from everything I've been reading, he was leaking reports out to Chris Mortensen that really transpired this whole thing and had that false report out there. So I don't think the league did a great job handling it either.
The league doesn't do a good job handling anything.
That's true.
I mean, the league is a joke, but the league is impervious. And the bottom line is, Tom Brady didn't question the authority of Roger Goodell. Tom Brady tried to circumvent the collective bargaining agreement. The rules are what they are. If you want to renegotiate the collective bargaining agreement and take power away from Roger Goodell, there's a process for that, However, he signed a contract, same as Marshawn Lynch, signed a contract to talk Super Bowl. Tom Brady signed a contract that said what the commissioner says is going to be the penalty, and these are the avenues of appeal. So the whole sort of zeitgeist of Deflategate painted a very, very good franchise. With probably the greatest coach ever and maybe the greatest quarterback ever, certainly the quarterback who made the most of his abilities ever, painted them as the evil empire, painted them as Darth Vader and Darth Sith. I mean, and I don't think they are those guys. I don't think they're terrible people, but they're completely unlikable at this point, And I don't have a horse in the race. I'm not from Philly. I'm not from, New England. I'm not, I don't really care who wins or loses in the NFL. But just observing it, I mean, yeah, the league typically, as usual, the league handled it badly. But Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are very smart guys, who did very dumb stuff.
Marcus Hayes with us from the Philadelphia Daily News. I want to get to one more hot topic before we get to your article about Jeff Collins, the new head football coach at Temple University. This Shazer Everett hit, I thought it was disgusting, and it was just, to me, there was a malicious intent on the hit. It's raised this conversation this week. Should the NFL adopt the targeting rules that are placed in college football? Where do you stand on that, Marcus?
I think the NFL should adopt any rule that enhances player safety. And so, yes, I think they should adopt targeting rules. The NFL, when you bring up hypocrisy, the NFL is hyper hypocritical when it comes to any player's safety except the quarterback. Every once in a while, they'll protect the receiver, but you can't sneeze on a quarterback, but you can decapitate a punt returner. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Players' safety is safety. It's common sense. Yes, absolutely. Protect the players as much as you can. They're corporations. You know, Aaron Sproles is the best football player playing for the Philadelphia Eagles right now, and he's not playing this weekend because DeShazer Everett, I think, was told to go hit him, because DeShazer Everett also took Brent Selleck out of the game earlier. The backup long snapper coincidentally got popped on the previous punt. So, you know, it stinks to high heaven. It's awful. And anything you can do to protect players in the NFL, you should do, because it's a brutal enough game as it is. Anything that you get flagged for like that should be the referee's discretion for an ejection at any point.
Marcus Hayes with us right now. Marcus, getting to your Jeff Collins article, and for people, if you haven't read it, he wrote a piece about Matt Rule and how he did a great job selling Temple University to anyone that wanted to listen, even people that didn't want to listen, and he had so much success with the Temple football program. And you asked the question, does Jeff Collins really know what he's getting himself into? You saw his press conference yesterday, I'm sure. What did you think about his press conference yesterday from Jeff Collins?
Well, you know, I was here for the hiring of Adazio, and I was here for the hiring of Matt Rule, and I believe that this guy's a really good football mind. Jeff Collins is a really good football mind, as good or better than those guys. I think he's going to be a really good coach. I hope the inertia that Adazio and Rule began continues for him, because my wife went to Temple Med. You know, we're invested in Temple. I'd like to see them do well. I like the story. I like the people who work at Temple, you know. But I don't know that he is the salesman that either of those guys were. I didn't get it from his press conference. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's got a full sail and it's going to, you know, sail off into the horizon and be a self-sustaining entity now. But I really do believe you have to sell Temple football. Jay Wright has to sell Villanova basketball and does a wonderful job of it. You know, that's just part of the gig here in Philadelphia. You have to sell your program. And if you're a college program, especially if you're, you know, probably the least relevant college program, except for maybe Drexel basketball.
I did like what he said yesterday, though, bringing up some of those ties from a guy that's clearly from the South. His wife, though, is from Delaware, and his family is from Delaware, the wife's side of the family. I liked how he made the John Chaney references and the Broad Street Bullies. But, yes, you have to do more than that. And I do think he'll be a good head coach for Temple, and he'll probably be here for 3-4 years and then go to the next job. That's just his Temple job now. But just the program, he's taking it over in a better spot than the program's ever been. I know that doesn't automatically sell Temple football, but doesn't it make it a little bit easier to sell the program now in this area?
Absolutely. It's much easier. There's much more there's way more television coverage of college football in general. You can sell that. I mean, I went to Syracuse, so I understand how quickly a program can erode, how fast it can become the wrong place to be for college kids. And Temple has a lot of challenges to just attracting kids. And, you know, technically Delaware is the South. You know, the Mason-Dixon line is Pennsylvania. So, I mean, yeah, I wish him the best. I hope he does great. You know, I hope he's better than I think he is. And I hope I'm absolutely wrong about thinking he isn't the salesman, or I hope it doesn't matter.
Marcus Hayes, before we let you run, and I know you touched on this in the article, but just knowing the last regime, as I did their games for the Temple Student Station when Matt Rule was here, I got pretty close with Matt. I got pretty close with Sean Patton. And those guys are not just someone that coached at Albright with Jeff Collins. They're legit confidants. They text almost every day. that factor of knowing Matt Rule, knowing the former chief of staff at Temple in Sean Patton, who's now at Baylor, don't you make you just think that maybe Collins knows what he's getting into because of knowing those two guys?
Well, as you said, I touched on that in my story, but touching on it and you're sort of being tangentially part of that and not living. I mean, Matt was here for a long time. Matt was at Temple for a long time.
Yep.
That's a New York City hustler. I don't know that Jeff Collins isn't a hustler himself. I can't say that, but I do know what Matt Rule was and what he did. And yeah, I think you can tell a guy, look, this is what I did. This is how I think you can guide him through the process from Texas if you're Matt. But I don't know that guy can do it. I mean, I'm a pretty good conversationalist. I'm not a very good salesman. It's just who you are. But again, this is a guy who ran recruiting programs. He's been at Alabama. I think that Jeff Collins will have no problem coaching football and running a program. And he's not the only one who can be responsible for making Temple continuing to make Temple relevant.
Yeah, I think they have the right athletic director in place in Pat Kraft. I was very impressed with Pat and the job he's done in his concise time at Temple. Marcus Hayes, I learned something every time you speak. I remember, actually, I got to make a confession to you before we let you run, and I texted this to a few people I know. I saw you speak at a Temple University Sports Journalism Summit, and I left that summit, and I pride myself on looking up words and enhancing my vocabulary. But at that summit, Marcus, you used some words that I've never heard before in my life.
Well, that's not always a good thing. The people you talk to and write for should be able to understand you. But, hey, you know what? I look up words all the time myself, and sometimes I use the wrong ones. And that's kind of embarrassing. So hopefully I didn't drop any malaprops on you.
I was sitting there in that summit on my phone, and I hope you didn't get offended. I was Googling. What did he just say? That word has too many syllables in it. Marcus, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks so much. There's Marcus Hayes joining us. And just to clarify something, my point, when you look at Howie, and there's some discrepancies of how much power Howie had, but when he's been named the general manager, and if you look at those first-round picks and the second-round picks, they've been hit or miss. Like we did it yesterday. We went through those 10 picks, and we were a little bit benevolent. Like we gave him Zach Ertz, and that could be an argument. Oh, yeah, Zach Ertz isn't one of those guys. And I know Andy had so much say, but you look at it, you could find some of those guys that you're like, okay, there's 4 or 5 out of those 10 that are, they may not be great players, but they're okay players. Howie and his staff needs to find in those next 2 drafts, especially in the first 2 rounds, 3 great players. And if they don't find 3 great players, then you're not doing your quarterback by the right way. And they need to do that. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey. WNJE, Trenton, Philadelphia, 4 minutes past 5 o'clock. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after these short messages on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey. We come to you today from Chickies and Pete's in Bordentown, powered by Corona Light. More of the Zach Gelb Show when we come back, and we're going to be joined by Justin Rogers at 5:15.